If you want to gain influence in a marketplace, even become a recognized expert in your area of expertise or knowledge, you have to understand this odd nuance about how you interact with your audience. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. There's a reason I don't make myself the center of attention for presentations or podcasts, and very, very limited times I go direct to camera. And it's because the truth of communications, even in this modern world, is that the customer or the prospective customer cares more about themselves than they care about you, even if you're an expert. Now listen, I know this is weird because the modern world rewards narcissistic and self-focused behavior. People are constantly taking selfies of each other, of themselves. They're taking pictures of each other. They're constantly getting that game face on. And really what this does is it distracts from the underlying message. So I'm going to share with you today 3 steps that you can take to have a more authentic message, to have a more meaningful, connecting message, and to initiate the dialogue that's necessary in order for a listener to become a customer. This is beneficial if you're a public speaker, beneficial if you're a podcaster or doing video or other types of multimedia marketing, if you're creating content or writing books. The key to understand is that the customer or the prospect has so much focus on themselves that when they hear anything other than their self-interest, it actually repels them. So if you're talking about what you did today, what you ate for lunch, there are consumers that would be interested in that because it's a curiosity. But the real players, the affluent, the people with money to spend, they don't give a damn about what you ate for breakfast. Now, I know in the past I've tweeted or posted things just for kind of, boredom on my part. But I realize over time that people don't really care. They don't care what I ate for breakfast or anything like that unless I was a chef. See, there's a contextual element that must be there. And it's really hard to be humble when you're constantly demanding other people's attention. I don't know if you notice this, but a lot of these YouTubers and a lot of these so-called influencers are not very happy people. There was a documentary that followed a couple influencers around, and they're making $1 million a month. They're making good money, don't get me wrong, but they're not happy with themselves. They're a shell of a character that they have to deliver all of the time. What I want for you is to be able to increase your conversion rates. Let's say you're a doctor or a lawyer and you have that initial consultation with a client. First off, how do you get the client in the door or the prospect in the door? Second, when you're having that initial consultation, how do you extract from that individual the elements that are necessary to know whether or not you can serve them? See, if you're too busy talking about yourself, you're going to miss the opportunity in order to serve that customer. Now, this is an odd thing to hear somebody say, especially today when celebrity means so much when it comes to demanding attention, when it means, getting media coverage. And you may want to be a celebrity in your marketplace, but how do you become a celebrity so that you get the outcome, which is being able to deliver products and services to your customers? Or having someone trust you enough that they will engage you for higher ticket services. See, when I look for a lawyer or a CPA, I have criteria for these people. I'm not just war dialing the phone to find the first one to answer the phone. I have a criteria. Unfortunately, I've been constantly disappointed with a lot of services providers in the last couple of years, but ultimately, it's about your prospect's interest. So number 1 out of these 3 steps is focus on the interests of your prospect. Now, why do you do this? Well, first off, even if you're doing a visual presentation, focusing the camera on yourself, focusing on your experiences, very often distracts from the core message. So do you really want to hear about the success I had? Well, if I'm an authority and I've had success, very often prospects would discount whether they could do it. See, if somebody's hiring me to help them solve a problem, and I've solved the problem 100 times over, and I never mentioned the experience that my client had, there's no confidence in the new prospect or the new client that I can help them. So how do we solve that? Well, again, we talk about the interests of the prospect. I opened this talking to you about increasing conversion rates, improving an audience's interest in your long-term needs. They're not really caring about your long-term needs, but your long-term needs as clients. You wouldn't be out there speaking or doing presentations if you weren't trying to get clients. Again, when we're talking about the customer or the prospect and we're giving them examples of other individuals that look like them, they gain the confidence in order to take the next step, which might be hiring you as a particular service provider. I was looking for a lawyer recently, and I went through probably 15 different sites. I had somebody go screen for me and give me a short list. I went through about 15 different sites, and a couple of the sites really talked about the case study of their client. And I was able to see the legal situation that I'm looking at in the language of their case study and felt more confident that they could actually solve the problem for me. Now, on some of the other websites, they talked about how the lawyer was well-esteemed and all these awards that they've got and how many years in business they've been. That means nothing. First off, I'm not hiring a single lawyer. I'm hiring a law firm. Second, that lawyer could be dead tomorrow. I want to know, can this firm function cohesively in order to execute on a legal matter that needs to be addressed? Same thing would be with medical doctors. Same thing would be with any expert. So if you want to be a recognized expert, you want to be the authority in a field, you cannot approach this self-centered. Now, it's hard to do sometimes. It's easier to talk about yourself than it is to talk about clients. Very often when I'll do a presentation or I'll work with a client to do a presentation, they need a whole binder full of one-page case studies, kind of a problem, pain, solution, action, or some kind of case study framework so that they can speak to the customer's experiences. Now, there's a whole bunch of sales elements in here. You can use feel, felt, found. Many of our clients feel this way about the problem that we're facing today. They felt these pains, and what they found is that when we approached it this way, they got a solution. And we can talk about those formulas. The key thing is it's very expensive to set up an environment to create media where you're focused. So you can start with audio. We used to do telephone seminars. So it's just me talking on the telephone. People would ask questions. I'd answer the questions. I've been on presentations where I was interviewed. Now, you can do all this stuff yourself. If you don't feel comfortable on camera, that's okay. You don't have to be on camera. Understand that when you see YouTube or you see someone's podcast where they're doing these interviews, very often they've had years to build up that set. They've had years to have the confidence to speak in front of an audience. You can speak to a slide deck. As long as you're not boring, and you won't be boring if you're talking about the audience's needs, the audience's concerns, the audience's desires, then you can drive the outcomes you're looking for. Let's talk about this specifically, the 3 steps. Number 1 is, I mentioned it earlier, you're going to focus on the interests of the prospects. You want a high-value presentation for the folks that are on the call or the folks that are listening to your materials, and it has to have high utility value for them. Now, you and I know that if it's a complex solution that you can take care of, you're not necessarily going to be able to solve that in a 15-minute presentation or a 90-minute presentation. So you want to have the level of knowledge shared or the level of actions they can take that's appropriate for the circumstances of the conversation. Number 2 is you want to encourage action over interest. If you're beautiful, if you've got a wonderful set, if you've got great editing, folks will be curious and interested in what you have, and they will watch it. But they may never take the action necessary to solve the problem they faced. They may look at it and say, oh, I would just love to be able to do that, but I don't feel confident to be able to do that. So again, you want to encourage action over interest. You do that by giving case studies and examples of people just like that audience, by challenging the audience. Like I would challenge you that the next time you do a presentation, I don't want you to use the word I or we. I want you to focus on that audience. Now, of course, if it's conversational like we're doing right now, you might say, I've experienced this and I've seen it with many clients, and let's talk about the client's experience. But even better would be just to leave you out of it. You're just the messenger. delivering the information so that the person in the audience can take action. Number 3 is you want to cultivate a sincere connection. I really do read the questions and the comments from people who will take the time to fax my office or to send me a letter. I love getting letters in the mail, and I will sit down with them and I will think about the individual's concerns and frustrations. I'll do a little homework. I may even send you some materials or point you to a podcast that's covered that topic before, because I want a sincere connection. Now, this does sound like a little bit of how to win friends and influence people. You can practice this in individual conversations by asking people about their experiences, asking people about their interests and concerns. You can also do that in what's called an ask campaign. So you do a survey to your prospects. They send in their questions. And then now when you do your presentation, you can, number 1, focus on the interests of the prospect. Number 2, you can encourage action over interest, because you're going to know what actions they need to take to get the outcomes that they're looking for. And finally, you can cultivate a sincere connection by really caring about the people in your audience. So again, you probably won't see very many presentations where it's just me talking to the camera. There's time involved in that. There's other things. Plus, I usually work from an outline. But I would encourage you to do the same. You don't need to have a set. You don't need to have a content writer. You don't need to have a lot of things other than a clear message for a specific group of people, and then to drive it home with context and clarity around what that audience wants. Now, of course, the bridge from what they're hearing to what they want to accomplish is contacting you to have a consultation, to do a discovery day, to have an assessment, some factor like that. And by the way, this works for business owners, legal professionals, doctors, any kind of professional position. It works for employees looking for new opportunities. It simply works. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. And how we pay for all this is I'm going to go ahead and pitch you an offer. And this is an example of how we are going to use the language to speak to your needs. And then there, of course, there's nothing to buy right now. It's really about sending in your questions. So do you want to gain more clients who pay, stay, and refer? Do you want to be in demand for your industry? That means people seeking you out for new opportunities. Well, then write in with your questions or comments. Let me help you remove obstacles and build stronger, more profitable business relationships. Simply visit www.insidestrategicrelations.com and ask your questions. Go to the contact page, send me a letter, send me a fax, contact me however you contact me, and I will take the time to either record a podcast specifically for you or otherwise write back with you and answer your questions. Because again, if you aren't able to help your prospects get to the next level, if you're not able to help them with applicable insights and materials, sure, they'll watch you, they'll pay attention to you, but eventually they're going to wander off for somebody who has shinier, more interesting things to say. But again, it's not about the attention. It's not about focusing on you. It's not about those trappings that are common to the rest of the world. It's about making a difference. Nobody's perfect. And if you start feeding a bunch of people to pay attention to you, you're going to have a false sense of security. You're going to start to become dependent on that attention, and it's going to get in the way of getting to that next level. There are so many leaders today that don't have LinkedIn pages. They don't have any presence on the internet, yet they're making millions of dollars a year doing what they love. And clients come to them because, again, they sincerely care about those clients. I want to thank you for listening. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and this is about being customer-centric and using that customer-centric to put attention on the challenges and the problems that your prospects have, and then bridging that into what you can offer them through very relatable messages, very focused communications, and ultimately cultivating a dialogue that moves that prospect towards the results they're looking for. Thanks for listening.